evidence. And all these articles are linked. So, you know, if people who later see this on YouTube and say, oh, I don't believe that prisonplanet.com is not a trustworthy source, this is basically just a list. New York Times, CNBC, the London Times, several other publications which show that days before the explosion, we're talking days, BP, having been aware of cracks and problems with this oil well and this oil rig over the past several months, chose to use a risky, weak saltwater solution to seal the cement around the casing pipe, in preference to a stronger, heavier drilling fluid, which would, under any other circumstance, knowing that they've had problems with this rig, knowing that it's a safety risk, should have been used. But they chose to use this weak saltwater solution, which, according to the New York Times, prompted heated arguments between BP officials and the crew members on the rig, who are obviously employed by Transocean. That's the company that owns it. According to Douglas H. Brown, who is the chief mechanic for Deepwater Horizon. So you've got people on the rig saying to BP, look, we've had problems with this for months. We've got indications that it's going to blow. And BP said, no, we use the risky, weak saltwater solution to seal this cap that's causing us these problems. This is a quote. Workers from the rig and company officials have said that hours before the explosion, gases were leaking through the cement which had been set in place by the oil services contractor Halliburton, our old friends Halliburton, you know, Dick Cheney and the rest of it, the front, the military industrial complex kingpin Halliburton. They were the ones sealing the well with this weak solution that all the rig workers said was a bad idea hours before it blew. This is Halliburton. Investigators have said these leaks were the likely cause of the explosion, reports the London Times. So Halliburton, hours before, improperly sealing this leak, which later, just a few hours later, causes the explosion. And Halliburton is named in at least 24 lawsuits filed since the explosion as being to blame for the disaster. Okay, so what motivation would Halliburton have for improperly sealing the well? Is it merely negligence? If it is, there still needs to be criminal proceedings. But the important thing about Halliburton is just 11 days before the Deepwater rig exploded, the Deepwater Horizon rig, Halliburton bought for a sum of $240 million a vastly experienced company that deals with the cleanup of oil spills. That's right, 11 days before Deepwater Horizon blew up after being improperly sealed by Halliburton, they had bought this company, Boots and Coots, which deals with oil spill cleanups. Now, take a rough guess who BP hired after the disaster to clean up the oil spill. That's right, no prizes for guessing, it was Boots and Coots. So now, with the oil spill cleanup contracts flooding in, Halliburton is making a killing off the oil spill that they caused. Now, is that suspicious? Do you think that requires any kind of inquiry or criminal investigation? To me, it's a smoking gun. And to others it's a smoking gun. A Raw Story did a big report on this, which we've linked to in the article. Quote, could Halliburton have known that an oil disaster was on the horizon and planned in advance to profit from it? News reports indicate they could have. Now, the New York Times again reported in May that BP was concerned about the rig's well casing, which Halliburton worked on, as early as June 2009. And they also report that a Halliburton employee warned BP 3 weeks before the explosion that BP's use of cement for the well casing was, quote, against Halliburton's best practices. So we've got multiple warnings that their methods in assuring the safety of this well, which had been extremely concerning and the source of consternation for people working on the well, was completely improper. And now the company making a financial killing from cleaning up the mess was precisely the same company that Halliburton had bought 11 days before the disaster that lawsuits now say that they were involved in. Do you sense any notion of conspiracy, of motivation, cui bono? This needs to be investigated immediately. You know, would it be in their interest to properly fix the cement walls and seal the cap? Or would it be in their interest to leave it unstable and cause it to blow, as people who worked on the rig were warning it would happen? The motivation is clear. Now, BP itself was also aware of cracks in the oil well as far back as February, which coincidentally at the same time was when the former BP chairman, now Goldman Sachs chairman, Peter Sutherland, Bilderberg member, big supporter of carbon taxes and global warming, as well as BP CEO Tony Hayward, were busy dumping their stocks. So for months they knew that this rig was a problem and it could blow, certainly if they continued the unsafe procedures in fixing it, and at that time they were all dumping their stocks. Does somebody need to look into this or what? You know, is the governor of Louisiana, Florida, are they interested in this? Alabama, Mississippi, is anybody interested in this? The fact that the people who were directly involved in this disaster were all dumping their stocks weeks and months before it happened, with the knowledge that the safety procedures run by Halliburton, who had also acquired a company that would later financially profit from the disaster, were completely unsafe. This all ties in. This indicates sabotage. I mean, we're going beyond mere negligence when you find out that the people who knew that this well had a big problem had all dumped their stock in the weeks and months before. I mean, come on. Are we children or what? Can we not add 1, 2 together? And we've got that report. Bloomberg got the documents which said that as far back as February they were concerned about these fissures because if they're improperly sealed, this is what causes the explosive natural gas to rush up the shaft, which is exactly what happened. And allied to that, you've got Halliburton using this saltwater solution that's the completely improper method of doing this, especially in the knowledge that this is unsafe to begin with. So BP, Halliburton, they're aware of the cracks, they're aware of the fissures, but they're using improper methods. I mean, in this report it talks about how BP were losing a lot of this expensive drilling fluid because of these cracks, and then the later decision was made to use the salt water instead of the drilling fluid by Halliburton because A, it was cheaper, and B, I'm suggesting that they had no motivation in keeping this rig safe. They both financially profited in the millions and ultimately probably in the billions of dollars out of this. And all these links, all this evidence is in the article. Don't believe me, go to the source. It's all there. And not only that, in terms of foreknowledge, as we've talked about before, the Deepwater Horizon managers knew that the rig had major problems before its explosion on April 20th. And the Houston attorney, big oil attorney who's won dozens of cases involving oil companies, he's got somebody on the record who heard a conversation between the Deepwater Horizon installation manager, Tony Busby, and a BP official in Houston. And according to this witness, who Busby's got his statement on record, Harrell was screaming. Harrell is this, you know, he's the manager on the rig. He was screaming to this anonymous BP official as the explosion happened and as the rig was burning, quote, "Are you fucking happy? Are you fucking happy? The rig's on fire. I told you this was gonna happen." They knew it was gonna happen because it was being improperly sealed by the methods that were ordered to be put into place by BP and Halliburton. So all the people on the rig knew it was gonna blow. It was no surprise to them when it did. BP and Halliburton, if the people on the rig knew it was gonna blow, BP and Halliburton were the ones responsible for the safety procedures. Do you think they knew it was going to blow? So you've got guys on the rig, as it's burning, saying, "I told you this was effing going to happen. Are you happy?" Like they wanted it to happen, because every measure to stop it happening wasn't done.